The observation deck smelled like antiseptic and defeat. Dr. Helen Anders watched through reinforced glass as the creature in the containment cell struggled with each breath. Its black fur was matted with dried blood, and the cyan spots that should have glowed bright barely flickered. This was the third emergency medical board meeting in as many days, and everyone knew what the conclusion would be. Warden Trell stood at the head of the conference table, her feathers ruffled with frustration. The avian administrator had seen countless rescue cases in her 20 years running conservation station Omega-7, but this one clearly troubled her. She pulled up holographic displays showing vital signs, all trending downward. The Vorathian Shadow Stalker has rejected every treatment protocol, Trell said, her beak clicking with each word. 3 of our best handlers attempted sedation. All 3 were injured. 1 required surgery. Dr. Moss, the fungoid medic whose spores glowed faintly in the dim lighting, expanded the medical scans. The infection has spread from the initial wounds to the lymphatic system. Even if we could force treatment, the psychological trauma makes recovery impossible. Wild apex predators rarely survive this level of captivity stress. Helen looked at the creature they had named Shade. She had studied Earth's big cats extensively before joining the Galactic Union conservation efforts. This predator moved like a leopard, thought like a leopard, but was so much more. 6 legs instead of 4. Bioluminescent markings that communicated mood and intent. Intelligence that bordered on sentience. "How was it captured?" asked Captain Reed, the human security officer who had transferred to the station 6 months ago. "Poachers," Trell replied, venom in her voice. "They wanted the pelt. Vorathian Shadow Stalker fur with active bioluminescent cells for 500,000 credits on black markets. They used shock nets and neural disruptors. By the time our patrol found the site, Shade had been trapped for 3 days. Helen felt her daughter's small hand squeeze hers. Lily had begged to come today instead of attending the education pod sessions. At 9 years old, she was small for her age, with curious brown eyes that missed nothing. Helen had agreed, thinking it would be educational. Now she regretted it. "The recommendation," Dr. Moss said quietly, "is humane euthanasia. We schedule it for tomorrow. At noon, Shade will feel no pain." The board members nodded one by one. Helen watched them give up, these brilliant minds from across the galaxy. They saw an unsolvable problem and chose the merciful exit. She understood their logic. She even agreed with it professionally. But beside her, Lily made a small sound of protest. "Do you have something to add, young one?" Warden Trell asked, not unkindly. Lily looked up at the adults surrounding the table. "Why are you giving up?" "We are not giving up," Dr. Moss said gently. "We are preventing suffering. Sometimes that is the kindest thing we can do." "But Shade doesn't want to die." Lily pointed at the observation window. "Look at its eyes." The board members turned. Through the glass, Shade had shifted position. Its massive head lifted slightly, amber eyes staring directly at them, not with aggression, with something else. "The creature is in pain," Trell explained. "What you interpret as a desire to live is simply biological resistance to death." "No," Lily shook her head. "Shade is scared. When my cat got sick last year, she acted the same way at the vet. She scratched everyone and hissed and wouldn't let anyone touch her. Not because she wanted to die, because she was terrified and didn't trust anyone." Captain Reed leaned forward, interested. "What happened to your cat?" "Mom took her home and I sat with her, just sat there and talked to her. After a while, she let me pet her. Then she let Mom give her medicine. She got better." "A domesticated earth feline is not comparable to a Vorathian apex predator," Dr. Moss said, though not unkindly. The meeting concluded with the vote, unanimous approval for euthanasia. Helen gathered their belongings and took Lily's hand. Her daughter remained silent during the walk back to their quarters, but Helen could feel the tension radiating from her. That evening, Helen found Lily staring out their viewport at the stars. "Sweetheart, I know this is hard, but Dr. Moss is right. We cannot always save everyone." "You are not even trying." Lily's voice was quiet but firm. "You are all so smart, but you don't understand. Shade is alone and hurt, and everyone who comes near wants to stick needles in it or put it to sleep. How is it supposed to trust anyone? What would you do differently? Lily turned from the window. I would sit with Shade, not to do anything, just to be there, so it knows someone cares. Helen smiled sadly and hugged her daughter. You have a good heart, but sometimes good hearts cannot fix everything. Lily went to bed without arguing, which should have warned Helen that something was wrong. But she was exhausted from the day's emotional weight and fell asleep quickly. At 3 in the morning, she woke to use the bathroom and noticed Lily's door open. The bed was empty. Helen's heart seized with panic. She checked the common areas, the observation lounges, even the rec rooms. All empty. Then she remembered the way Lily had looked at Shade through that observation window, the determination in her daughter's eyes. Helen ran for the communication panel and called Captain Reed. My daughter is missing, and I think I know where she went. They found Lily 40 minutes later on the security feeds. She sat on the floor outside Shade's containment cell, her back against the wall, talking softly. Through the audio pickups, they could hear her voice. My name is Lily. I know you hurt. I know you are scared. But you are not alone anymore, I promise. Inside the cell, Shade had moved closer to the barrier. The predator's eyes were open, focused entirely on the small human child. For the first time since rescue, its vital signs had stabilized. Helen arrived at a run with Captain Reed and Dr. Moss close behind. But before she could scold Lily, the fungoid doctor held up a scanner, spores swirling with amazement. The infection stopped spreading, heart rate normalized. This is impossible. They stood in silence, watching a 9-year-old human girl and a dying alien predator regard each other through reinforced glass. Something was happening that none of their training had prepared them for. Something that would change everything. Warden Trell arrived at the medical wing with her feathers flat against her body, a sign of deep concern among her species. She had been woken at dawn with impossible news. The dying predator that should have been euthanized in 6 hours had somehow stabilized overnight. The cause appeared to be a small human child sitting outside its cell. Helen Anders felt torn between pride and terror as she watched her daughter through the observation window. Lily had fallen asleep against the wall, her head tilted at an uncomfortable angle. Inside the containment cell, Shade lay in a position that mirrored the child's posture, as if keeping watch. This changes nothing, Doctor, Moss said, though his glowing spores flickered with uncertainty. One night of stability does not mean recovery. The infection remains critical. Without treatment, death is still inevitable. But Shade is calm. Captain Reed gestured at the monitors. Look at those readings. The creature is not in fight or flight mode anymore. Maybe we can actually treat it now. Trell's head cocked to one side, a gesture of consideration. We have 12 hours before the scheduled euthanasia. I am willing to delay if we can use this opportunity, but the child cannot stay here. Helen moved to wake Lily, but the motion sensors alerted Shade. The predator's head snapped up, amber eyes locking onto Helen with clear warning. A low rumble echoed through the containment field. Not quite a growl, but definitely a threat. Lily stirred at the sound and opened her eyes. She saw her mother and smiled. Hi, Mom. Lily Anders, you are in so much trouble. Helen tried to sound stern, but relief flooded through her voice. You stole my access card and snuck into a restricted area with a dangerous animal. Shade is not dangerous. Shade is scared. Lily stood and brushed off her pajamas. She turned to face the adults gathered in the observation room. And I know you want to help, but Shade does not trust you yet. Warden Trell stepped forward. Young one, I understand your compassion, but we are running out of time. Will you help us? Lily looked at the avian administrator with those serious brown eyes. What do you want me to do? Let us try one more treatment, with you present. If the creature remains calm, we might save its life. An hour later, strict protocols were established. Lily could enter the observation corridor, but not the cell itself. Dr. Moss would prepare medication that could be administered remotely through the containment field's delivery system. If Shade showed any aggression, they would abort immediately. Helen wanted to refuse, to grab her daughter and run far from this insane plan. But she saw the determination in Lily's face and knew her child would find a way back here regardless. Better to have it happen under controlled conditions. Lily returned to her spot on the floor. She brought a datapad this time, loaded with images from Earth's archives. As the medical team watched, she began showing Shade pictures of leopards and jaguars and snow leopards. "These are from my home planet," Lily said. "Softly, they look like you. Well, they have 4 legs instead of 6, and they do not glow, but they move like you, graceful and strong." Shade pulled itself into a sitting position for the first time since rescue. The movement clearly caused pain, but the predator persisted. It dragged itself closer to the containment barrier, eyes fixed on the datapad screen. Lily scrolled to an image of a leopard with cubs. "Did you have babies before the bad people came?" The change in Shade was immediate. The predator made a sound none of them had heard before, a chirping rumble that resonated through the room. Its bioluminescent spots flared brighter, pulsing with what could only be described as grief. Helen felt tears sting her eyes. This creature had lost everything: family, freedom, health, and still it fought to survive. "I am sorry," Lily whispered. "I am so sorry they hurt you." Dr. Moss moved quietly into the corridor, carrying the medication applicator. Shade's eyes tracked the movement, body tensing. The rumble changed to a warning growl. "Wait," Lily held up her hand. She looked at the fungoid doctor. "Can I do it?" "Absolutely not," Helen said immediately. But Captain Reed was already moving to the control panel. "The containment field has a small access port at floor level, 6 inches maximum clearance. We use it for sample collection. If we open just that section, Lily could reach through." "And lose her arm if the creature decides to bite," Helen protested. Lily stood and walked to where Shade pressed against the barrier. They were face to face now, separated only by the energy field. Slowly, carefully, Lily raised her hand and placed it against the barrier. After a moment that stretched like eternity, Shade lifted one massive paw and pressed it to the same spot from inside. "Shade will not hurt me," Lily's voice carried absolute certainty. "We are partners now." Warden Trell and Helen exchanged looks. The avian administrator gave a slight nod. Sometimes you had to trust what you could not explain. Captain Reed opened the floor-level access port, just 6 inches as promised. Lily knelt and accepted the medication applicator from Dr. Moss. Her hands shook slightly as she extended her arm through the gap. Shade's enormous head lowered. Those jaws could crush bone with ease. Those teeth could tear through reinforced body armor. The predator trembled as it considered the small human hand. Entering its space. "Stay with me, partner," Lily whispered. "Let me help you." The room held its collective breath as Shade went perfectly still. Lily began spraying the antibiotic and healing accelerant onto the infected wounds she could reach. The predator's muscles quivered, but it did not pull away. It endured the treatment with only the softest whimper. Minutes passed like hours. Lily worked methodically, treating every wound accessible through the small opening. When the canister emptied, she withdrew her hand slowly. Shade watched her the entire time. Then the predator did something that made Dr. Moss's spores flash with astonishment. It began to purr, a deep, rolling sound that reverberated through the deck plating. Captain Reed grinned. "I think that means thank you." Lily pressed her forehead against the barrier. "You are welcome, partner. We are going to get you better, I promise." 2 weeks transformed everything. Lily visited Shade 3 times daily, and the predator's recovery progressed faster than any medical model predicted. The wounds closed cleanly. The infection vanished. Shade began eating again, though only when Lily sat nearby talking about Earth animals or her day at the education pods. Word spread throughout Conservation Station Omega-7. Scientists from a dozen species requested permission to observe the unprecedented human-predator bond. The conference room filled daily with researchers taking notes and running scans, trying to understand what they were witnessing. Helen found herself at the center of attention she never wanted. As a xenobiologist, she understood the scientific importance of what was happening. As a mother, she worried constantly about her daughter's safety. The dichotomy kept her awake at night. One afternoon, she watched Lily demonstrate the feeding routine to a group of visiting scholars. Her daughter held chunks of synthesized meat through the access port, while Shade delicately accepted each piece. The predator could have easily snapped up Lily's entire hand with the food, but instead took only what was offered. "Fascinating," murmured a crystalline researcher whose name Helen could not pronounce. "The Vorathian demonstrates clear understanding of human fragility and adjusts behavior accordingly. This suggests conscious choice rather than instinctive response." "My daughter is not conducting an experiment," Helen said quietly. "She is taking care of a friend." The crystalline being's facets refracted confusion. "Is there a difference?" Helen realized that perhaps there was. For many species in the Galactic Union, observation and interaction were clinical processes. But humans brought something different. They brought emotion, connection, the ability to see another being not as a subject but as an individual worthy of care. That evening, Captain Reed found Helen in the station's small garden dome, where earth plants grew under artificial sunlight. She sat among the tomato plants, datapad displaying research articles she had been reading. "Found something interesting?" Reed asked, settling onto the bench beside her. "I have been researching Earth's history with animal domestication. Dogs, horses, cats, falcons, species that other intelligent aliens in the galaxy consider impossible to tame. But humans managed it repeatedly. We have a gift for making friends with things that could kill us," Reed said with a slight smile. "It is more than that." Helen expanded one of the articles. "Look at this. Wolves were apex predators who competed with humans for resources. By all logic, they should have remained enemies. But somewhere around 15,000 years ago, humans and wolves began cooperating, not through dominance or force, through mutual benefit and trust." Reed studied the images of ancient humans hunting alongside wolf companions. "You think that is what Lily is doing? Domesticating an alien species?" "No, domestication implies changing a species over generations to serve human needs. Lily is doing something different. She is building a partnership with a wild creature on its own terms. She does not want to change Shade. She wants Shade to heal and be free." Before Reed could respond, an alarm chimed on his comm unit. He listened briefly, then stood. "Warden Trell is calling an emergency meeting, something about Shade's release schedule." The conference room was crowded when they arrived. Trell stood at the head of the table with Dr. Moss beside her. The fungoid doctor's spores swirled with agitation. "Shade has been medically cleared for transport," Trell announced. "The wounds are healed. Psychological evaluation shows significant improvement. Conservation protocols require we return the creature to Vorath 3 within the next 5 days." Helen felt her stomach drop. She glanced at Captain Reed, who looked equally troubled. "Has anyone told Lily?" Helen asked. "That is why you are here. We need your help preparing your daughter for separation. This bond she has formed is extraordinary, but it cannot be permanent. Shade belongs in the wild." Helen found Lily in their quarters that night, drawing pictures of Shade on her datapad. She sat beside her daughter and pulled her close. "Sweetheart, we need to talk about Shade." Lily looked up with those knowing brown eyes. "They are sending Shade home, aren't they?" "Yes, in 5 days, to Vorath 3 where Shade's species lives. There are only 200 Shadow Stalkers left in the entire galaxy. Shade needs to help rebuild that population." Tears welled in Lily's eyes, but she did not let them fall. "I know, Shade told me." Helen blinked. "Told you how?" "The spots, the bioluminescent markings. They change patterns when Shade is happy or sad or thinking about home. Last week they started showing me forests and mountains. Shade misses Vorath 3. They sat together in silence for a while. Finally, Lily spoke. "Can I visit Shade every day until transport? I want to prepare my partner for going home." Over the next 4 days, Lily's visits changed in tone. She showed Shade images and videos of Vorath 3, dense bioluminescent forests where shadow stalkers hunted, floating mountain ranges where they made their dens. She talked about freedom and running and hunting under 3 moons. Shade's response was conflicted. The predator's spots would pulse with longing when seeing images of home, but dim when Lily talked about leaving. On the final night before transport, Shade pressed against the containment barrier and made a low, mournful sound. Lily pressed her hand to the barrier. "I know you do not want to leave me. I do not want you to go either, but you deserve to be wild and free. You deserve to find a mate and have cubs and teach them how to hunt. That is what partners do. They want what is best for each other." Helen watched from the observation deck, tears streaming down her face. Captain Reed stood beside her, equally moved. "That kid is going to change the galaxy," Reed said softly. Morning arrived with the transport team. They assembled with sedation equipment, expecting the same resistance Shade had shown during initial rescue. But when they opened the containment cell, something unexpected happened. Shade walked out calmly and headed straight for the transport crate. The handlers froze in shock. The predator reached the crate entrance, then stopped. It turned and looked down the corridor to where Lily stood watching, tears streaming freely now. Those amber eyes held a question, a choice. And Shade made its decision. Shade backed away from the transport crate and sat down. The predator's bioluminescent spots flashed in rapid patterns that Dr. Moss had learned to interpret as stubborn determination. When the handlers tried coaxing Shade forward with food, the creature simply stared at Lily down the corridor. "Sedate it," one handler suggested nervously. "No," Warden Trell's feathers ruffled with frustration. "Scan its vitals first." Dr. Moss ran his medical scanner over Shade from a safe distance. His spores flickered with confusion. No distress markers, no fear response. Heart rate is elevated but stable. The creature is not panicking. It is simply refusing. Captain Reed voiced what everyone was thinking. It does not want to leave without her. An emergency session began immediately. Galactic conservation law was clear. Rescued wildlife must return to native habitats unless doing so would cause immediate death. But Shade was healthy now. There was no medical justification for keeping the predator on the station. Yet forcing Shade onto that transport would require heavy sedation and restraints. Everything they had worked to heal, all the psychological recovery, would be undone in an instant. Shade would arrive on Vorath 3 traumatized again, possibly beyond saving. "We are caught between regulations and reality," Trell admitted to the assembled council. "If we force compliance, we destroy what we sought to preserve. If we delay, we violate conservation protocols that have kept endangered species alive for 300 years. A holographic transmission activated. An elderly Vorathian appeared, her own bioluminescent markings dimmed with age. She introduced herself as Elder Kess, representative of the Vorathian Cultural Council. "I have been monitoring this situation with great interest," Kess said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. "What you are witnessing is not common, but it is not unknown to my people. In our ancient times, before we developed technology, shadow stalkers occasionally formed bonds with worthy individuals. We called them soul walkers. These bonds were considered sacred." Trell leaned forward. "What happened when soul walkers were separated?" They died, both of them. The shadow stalker would waste away, refusing food and companionship. The bonded individual would fall into a grief so deep that no medicine could cure it." Helen felt ice flood her veins. She looked at Lily standing near Shade, one small hand resting against the predator's side. Her daughter looked so tiny next to the massive creature, yet somehow they fit together perfectly. "Are you saying separation would kill them?" Helen asked. Elder Kess's markings pulsed sadly. "The bond appears genuine. If severed now, both would suffer tremendously, possibly fatally." The council erupted in debate. Voices from a dozen species argued about precedent and protocol and possibilities. Helen stopped listening to them. She watched her daughter and knew what had to happen, even if it terrified her. Captain Reed touched her shoulder. There might be another way. He proposed the compromise to Warden Trell privately, who then brought it to the full council. If Shade truly had bonded with Lily, then perhaps the solution was not to separate them, but to honor the bond. Helen and Lily would relocate to Vorath 3 for a minimum of 2 years. They would live at the conservation station there, helping establish the Protected Reserve program. Shade would be free to roam the wilderness but could return to the station and to Lily at will. This arrangement would give the Predator both freedom and companionship. It would also allow xenobiologists to study the unprecedented human-Vorathian bond in detail. The vote took 3 hours. Species representatives argued about precedent and risk and the proper role of humans in galactic conservation. Finally, Elder Kess spoke again. My people would welcome this arrangement. The human child has saved one of our most endangered species. If Shade has chosen her as Soul Walker, we will honor that choice. Vorath 3 will be open to them. The motion passed with a narrow majority. When the decision was announced, Lily was brought to the conference room. Helen knelt beside her daughter and took both small hands in hers. Lily, the council has made a decision. Shade can go home to Vorath 3, but you and I would go too. We would live there for at least 2 years, maybe longer. You would leave behind your friends, your school, everything familiar. This is not a small thing. Lily looked at her mother with those serious brown eyes that seemed too old for a 9-year-old. Face, what about Dad? Helen's heart clenched. Her husband had stayed on Earth to complete his own research contracts. They had planned to reunite in 6 months when Helen's station assignment ended. Now that timeline was shattered. Dad and I talked. He supports whatever you decide. But Lily, this has to be your choice. No one will force you to go. There are other options. Like what? The council could try to find another human child to bond with Shade, or develop new protocols for treating traumatized predators based on what we learned from you. You have already done so much. Lily turned to look through the observation window where Shade waited in the corridor, still refusing to enter the transport crate. The predator's eyes tracked Lily's movement, and its bioluminescent spots pulsed with hopeful patterns. When you saved that bird last year, Lily said quietly, the one with the broken wing, you could have left it. Someone else could have helped it. But you did not. You said partners do not abandon each other. This is different, sweetheart. That bird was on Earth. This is an alien planet. But it is not different. Lily stood and walked to the window. She placed her hand against the glass. Down the corridor, Shade rose and approached, pressing its massive paw to the barrier from the other side. Shade is my partner. Partners do not leave each other behind. Where Shade goes, I go. Helen looked at her daughter and saw not a child, but someone far wiser. Someone who understood that some bonds transcend species, planets, or convenience. She thought about her research, about humans and wolves hunting together 15,000 years ago, about how that partnership had changed both species forever. Okay, Helen whispered. We will go to Vorath 3 together. Lily smiled through tears and hugged her mother fiercely. Behind them, Shade released a sound they had never heard before, a joyful, rolling purr that made the deck plating vibrate. 3 months passed in a blur of preparations. Helen arranged transfers and packed their lives into cargo containers. Video calls with her husband grew longer and harder as departure approached. He understood, but she could see the loneliness in his eyes when they said goodbye each night. Lily threw herself into learning everything about Vorath 3. She studied the ecology, the climate patterns, the behavior of native species. Captain Reed began teaching her. Basic wilderness survival skills adapted for alien environments. She absorbed it all with fierce determination. Shade remained calm through the preparations, as if understanding this delay was necessary. The predator spent hours with Lily, letting her examine its retractable claws and explain them to visiting researchers. Scientists from across the galaxy came to document the bond before they departed. One researcher, a tentacled being from a water world, asked Lily how she communicated with Shade when they shared no common language. "We do share a language," Lily explained patiently. "It is not words, it is trust. When Shade spots pulse fast, that means excited or worried. Slow pulses mean content. No glow means scared or sick. And I talk to Shade about everything, even when I know the words do not make sense, because tone matters, because being there matters." The researcher's tentacles curled with fascination. "Your species forms emotional bonds with such ease. How is this possible?" Lily shrugged. "Because every living thing wants the same stuff, to be safe, to be understood, to matter to someone. Shade matters to me. I matter to Shade. That is all partnership really is." The transport ship to Vorath 3 was smaller than the station, but comfortable. It would take 3 weeks to reach the distant planet. Shade was given a large cargo bay modified with environmental controls and enough space to move freely. Lily visited constantly, sleeping in a hammock she had strung near Shade's resting area. Helen watched her daughter adapt to life aboard ship and marveled at how much Lily had grown in just a few months. The shy child who struggled with other kids at school had become confident and purposeful. She had found something to care about beyond herself, and it had changed her completely. Halfway through the journey, Helen found Lily sitting with Shade in the cargo bay, both of them watching the stars pass through the observation port. "Do you think Shade will still want to be with me when we get to Vorath 3? Lily asked quietly. "When Shade has forests to run in and freedom to go anywhere." Helen sat beside her daughter. "I think Shade will always want to be with you, but Shade also needs to be wild. Those two things do not cancel each other out. They just mean your partnership will look different than it does now. What if Shade finds a mate? What if Shade has cubs and does not need me anymore? Then you celebrate that, because partnership is not about being needed. It is about caring what happens to someone even when they do not need you." Helen pulled Lily close. "Your father and I are partners, but we do not need each other every second. We have our own lives and work and interests. That does not make us less important to each other." Lily considered this, then smiled. "So Shade can have a family and I can still be Shade's partner." "Exactly." The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel 3 weeks later. Through the viewports, Vorath 3 appeared like a jewel, swirling clouds in shades of purple and green, 3 moons orbiting in complex patterns. As they descended toward the conservation station, the bioluminescent forests became visible, glowing against the darkness. Shade pressed against the observation port, spots pulsing wildly. A high-pitched sound emerged from the predator, something between a cry and a song. Helen had never heard Shade make such a noise. "Shade remembers," Lily whispered. "Shade is home." Conservation Station Vorath sat in a clearing carved from ancient forest. It was smaller than Omega 7, but beautifully designed, with architecture that blended into the natural landscape. Elder Kess herself waited at the landing platform, her aged markings dim but dignified. "Welcome, Soul Walkers," she said in accented but clear English. "Vorath 3 has awaited your arrival." The first few days were overwhelming. Helen began work cataloging native species and establishing research protocols. Lily attended orientation sessions about local dangers and safety procedures, but both of them felt Shade's restlessness growing. The predator prowled their assigned habitat unit, stopping frequently at windows that overlooked the forest. Its spots flickered with longing. Finally, on the 5th day, Captain Reed arrived with news. He had transferred to Vorath Station as head of security specifically to help Helen and Lily adjust. Now he stood in their doorway with a grin. "The medical board has cleared Shade for wilderness release. Tomorrow morning, if you are ready." They gathered at the forest edge at dawn. The station's outer gate opened onto a trail that led deep into bioluminescent trees. Elder Kess and a small group of Vorathian observers joined them, along with Dr. Moss, who had also transferred to continue studying the bond. Shade stood at the threshold between station and wilderness. For the first time since rescue, no barriers separated the predator from freedom. Those 6 legs tensed, ready to run. "Go on," Lily said softly. "Go be wild." Shade looked at her with those amber eyes. Then the predator turned and vanished into the forest in 3 powerful bounds. The bioluminescent undergrowth swallowed its form in seconds. Lily stood watching long after Shade disappeared. Elder Kess touched her shoulder gently. "The first separation is always hardest, but soul walkers always return to each other. Give it time." Days passed, then a week. Lily tried to focus on schoolwork transmitted from Earth and on exploring the station. But she watched the forest constantly, waiting for a glimpse of black fur and glowing spots. Helen grew worried. Had they been wrong? Had Shade chosen freedom over partnership after all? On the 9th day, Lily sat on their habitat's porch as the first moon rose. The forest glowed with natural bioluminescence, creating patterns of light and shadow. Helen prepared to call her daughter inside when Lily suddenly stood. "Shade," she whispered. Helen looked and saw nothing. Then a pair of amber eyes appeared in the tree line. Shade emerged from the forest slowly, moving with confidence and grace that had been missing in captivity. The predator was healthy, strong, wild. Shade approached the porch and sat, made that rumbling purr sound. Lily walked down the steps carefully and wrapped her arms around the massive neck. "I knew you would come back," she said into Shade's fur. "Welcome home, partner." 5 years changed everything and nothing. Lily was 14 now, taller but still small for her age. She moved through Vorath's forests with confidence that would have terrified her 9-year-old self. The bioluminescent trees were as familiar as the streets of her childhood neighborhood on Earth. Shade appeared at the station 3 or 4 times each week, sometimes for hours, sometimes just minutes. The predator had found its wild rhythm, hunting and patrolling ancient territories, but always Shade came back. The real transformation happened in the 3rd year. Shade arrived one evening with a companion, another shadow stalker, slightly smaller with violet bioluminescent markings. Lily had frozen on the porch, heart pounding, as the 2 predators approached together. Shade made introduction sounds, a series of chirps and rumbles. The other, Shadow Stalker, female based on her markings, studied Lily with cautious amber eyes. After a tense moment, she approached and sniffed Lily's extended hand. "Hello," Lily had whispered. "I am Lily, Shade's partner." Elder Kess later explained that in Vorathian culture, introducing a mate to one's soul walker was the highest form of trust. Shade was saying that Lily belonged to the family. Now, 2 years later, Lily sat on the forest cliff that had become her favorite thinking spot. Below, the valley stretched in bioluminescent glory. 3 moons hung in the purple sky, casting triple shadows. Captain Reed found her there, as he often did. He had become like family over the years, a protective uncle who taught her to read weather patterns and track native species. "Visitors arrived today," Reed said, settling beside her. 6 more injured shadow stalkers, rescued from another poaching operation in the Northern Territories. Lily felt the familiar ache in her chest. Even with conservation efforts and galactic laws, poachers still hunted these beautiful creatures. How bad? Similar to how Shade was, traumatized, aggressive, refusing treatment, the medical team is out of options. Reed paused. "They are asking for you." But Lily shook her head. "I cannot bond with 6 more predators. I am one person." "I know, that is why Helen had an idea." Her mother's proposal was radical. Establish a formal program matching human children with traumatized shadow stalkers, not as handlers or trainers, but as companions, as partners who could help scared predators remember how to trust. 8 human families now lived on Vorath Station, staff members who had transferred over the years, bringing their children. Helen suggested recruiting volunteers from the 12 kids aged 8 to 15, train them properly, let them help. The program took 6 months to develop. Lily helped design the training, teaching other kids what she had learned. How to read spot patterns, how to move slowly and speak softly, how to understand that partnership was not about control but about mutual respect. 5 children completed training. Each was carefully matched with a rescued shadow stalker based on personality. The results astonished even Helen. 3 of the 5 predators responded positively. They began accepting treatment, eating again, showing signs of recovery. 2 did not bond, but they also did not deteriorate, just having. Calm human presence nearby seemed to help. Word spread through the Galactic Union. The head of Conservation Services visited personally, a crystalline being who had once questioned whether there was a difference between observation and friendship. Now they understood. Humans possess a unique capacity, the official announced at a formal symposium. The ability to form genuine emotional connections across vast biological and cultural differences. This has value beyond what we previously recognized. That night, Lily walked into the forest with a small pack of supplies. Shade met her at the usual spot, but tonight the predator was not alone. 3 cubs tumbled around their mother's legs, playing and wrestling. They were 4 months old now, healthy and wild. The smallest cub, brave and curious like its parent, approached Lily. It sniffed her boots, and then, in a gesture that made Lily's heart swell, it head-butted her hand gently. Shade watched with those knowing amber eyes, purring approval. "They are beautiful," Lily said, tears streaming freely. "You did so good, partner." She spent an hour playing with the cubs while Shade rested nearby. When the moons reached their zenith, Shade gathered the cubs and prepared to return to their den deep in the forest. But before leaving, Shade approached Lily one more time. The predator pressed its forehead to Lily's chest, a gesture they had developed over the years. It meant trust. It meant family. It meant goodbye for now, but never goodbye forever. Later, Helen found Lily on their habitat porch, staring at the forest. "Your father sent another message. He misses us. He is asking again when we might come home." Lily considered the question seriously. Earth was home in many ways. Her father was there, along with friends and family she barely remembered. But this place, this glowing alien world with its 6-legged predators and triple moons, had become home too. "What do you want to do, Mom?" Helen smiled. "I want what is best for you, but I also want what is best for the program we have built here. 6 more rescue cases are coming next month. The partnership program is proving that humans can contribute to conservation in ways no other species can. Someone needs to be here to guide it." "Then we stay," Lily said it with certainty. "At least for now. Shade's cubs will have cubs someday. Someone needs to protect them, to teach new generations of humans and shadow stalkers how to be partners." Helen hugged her daughter. "When did you become so wise?" "The day I learned that the scariest creatures sometimes just need someone to stay with them, to whisper that they are not alone when everyone else has given up." In the forest, Shade's bioluminescent spots pulsed once, visible even from the distance. A greeting, a promise, a reminder that some bonds transcend species and circumstance. Lily raised her hand in response, knowing her partner could see it. Knowing that tomorrow Shade would return, wild and free but never truly alone. Because that was what partnership meant. Not ownership, not dependency. Just the simple, profound knowledge that someone